Hi, this is Evan Pritchard, and this is another Natural State University class or workshop. And today's class is similar to the one that was given at Mirabai a month ago, which was very popular. And they call this one the Four Medicine Birds, the eagle, hawk, crow, and owl. And some people call them the strong birds, some call them the four gatekeepers. And so I'm going to explain a little about that. This is this workshop is interesting because it goes beyond what's in bird medicine. And in bird medicine, I wanted to try to explain why birds were sacred by showing examples of 200 different stories or references to birds interceding in people's lives in a very beneficial way, a very important way, and establish the truth of the idea among Native American elders that birds are messengers from spirit and have a gift for tuning in to messages from Great Spirit. And so this workshop is kind of follows after bird medicine with additional stories and additional insight, an additional focus on the four gatekeepers. Now, in the book Bird Medicine, the first four chapters are focused on one, the eagle, the next one's the hawk, the next one's the crow, and then the owl. So the book is structured around the four gatekeepers. And it's interesting that uh, I find that the attributes of the various species of birds and what they specialize in, and the fact of the four gatekeepers and their particular directions they're associated with, eagle in the north, hawk in the east, crow in the south, and owl in the west, universally agreed upon by elders from coast to coast, even though there's never been had never been a word written about written about the attributes of the different species and how they help people, but also the directional attributions of these four gatekeepers. And how is that possible? It goes way back thousands of years. So it's an interesting topic. So today we're going to talk about those four gatekeeper birds, and we're going to go into depth about more additional stories that I learned about after writing bird medicine. So here we go. So I have a PowerPoint, and I'm going to see what I can do here to get that going. And excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm looking for that. Um, okay. Now here's the PowerPoint. Strong birds for tough times. That was the PowerPoint before. So now we're calling this the medicine birds. So these are this was a blurb for that workshop. A deep dive into the medicine birds, eagle, hawk, crow, and owl, who serve as gatekeepers of the four directions. According to the Native American wisdom on the subject, these four birds are the strongest ones spiritually speaking. And that is true. That is what the elders say all over North America. The eagle at the north of the medicine wheel of life is the leader of the four and the leader of all birds. The white eagle is a spiritual teacher whose body is made of white light that all can see in dreams and visions and get help from in hard times. This is probably the single most important guardian or helper is the spirit eagle or the white eagle. Is not a physical eagle and has nothing to do with race. It's a white bird. It's made of light. The hawk at the east of the wheel is sometimes thought of as a substitute eagle, highly trusted as a guardian and messenger, but it does not fly quite as high as the eagle. So we notice that there is almost in all ways the hawk is able to do the kind of things that eagles do, but perhaps at a lesser capacity because they know that they fly less high than the eagles. The crow in the south is a storyteller, trickster, shapeshifter, most of all, a bird that warns of danger with a warning that is understood by all species. And I believe it's 3 costs that are said in a stressed way that every animal and human who lives in the bush understands as a general warning. It'd be caw, 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 like that with a little extra twist there. So it's a warning. That's how I understand it. I might be wrong. If you know better, write in and let me know. But that's what I learned. Okay, so the crow tells all the animals of danger. They will also warn other birds about if you have a gun. They'll tell everybody. No secrets in the woods. The owl in the west is the bridge between the world of the dead and that of the living, of course, as I think most people know. Some fear this bird, but it can help us with our fears, can help us to understand death. It brings messages from those who have died or from the world of the dead about somebody dying. And you can kind of tell. Uh, in combination, these 4 birds can help us on the right path in life so that we walk in balance, paying attention to our soul, our mind, heart, and body, the 4 directions of ourselves, serving the one which lies at the heart of the wheel. So that's the basic medicine wheel teachings of the bird wheel itself. Now, this was from bird medicine. The spirit of an ancestor or another guardian spirit can sometimes go into a bird that is given permission to do so. Birds are that pure. They are willing to offer themselves in service to others. That's from Grandfather Turtle, and he passed away a few weeks ago. And we're sorry to see him go. He had a lot of teachings about birds, very close to eagles all the time, look for signs constantly. But what he's saying here is that the birds are so pure. In other words, they're offering themselves unselfishly in service to all species and humans in ways that we can understand if we're trained in this, the native way. But they're very pure, and that's how they're able to do it. And by pure, that's a word that does come up with the elders sometimes, and it has to do with the 12 levels of clouds in the sky, and things are more pure and close to the source of the Wa, or that light that sustains creation. Less gets in the way. And of course, the birds have, not a lot in the way up here. They're not always worrying about stock prices or whatever. You know, that old expression, like tenors who sing well, some of them, they say it's because there's lots of resonating space up there. If you know what I mean. Well, that's true of birds too, is that they really have very little complexity in their own thoughts as far as we would guess. And they're open hearted and open minded. And that pure intelligence comes right through and they don't block it. That's a theory, of course. Okay, so then we have the medicine wheel of the birds, the great hoop, the medicine wheel of life. The great wheel embodies the 4 directions and the fourness of things, which in Micmac is Nalkal, fourness of things. And each direction represents or embodies a different element. Fire in the east, air in the south, water in the west, and earth or rock in the north. And that's like the great wheel. And there is a hoop within this great hoop of life that divides that into like humans in the east, and then birds in the south, fish in the west, and 4-leggeds in the north. This is very, very clear. In this medicine wheel, there's a grandmother and grandfather bear in the north, balancing things out and guarding, protecting everybody. And in the south is a grandmother and grandfather eagle, leading, watching over the medicine wheel. That wheel. But there's also another hoop that's just for birds, and that's at the south of that wheel, as I mentioned. But within that, there's a whole 4-direction wheel as well. And each gate is a source of spiritual power. And the birds are so important on the great wheel of life. They're like angels, they're like the messengers. And so the birds are actually gatekeepers in a sense for the whole wheel. These 4 strong birds I mentioned are those gatekeepers, and they guard the invisible gates or portals to the 4 powers. They're the eagle, the hawk, the crow or raven, all the blackbirds, and 4th, the owl. So let's take a closer look. This is this wheel I made, but I don't want you to take it too literally. but there's a wheel for each of the four birds, and that includes four subspecies, as you see here. So again, hoops within hoops. So if you're looking at this and you say, okay, so there's a wheel of eagles, and that's in the north. There's a golden eagle in the north of that wheel, the bald eagle in the east of that wheel, vultures and condors, maybe a turkey, in the south, sort of like the crow birds of the eagles family. And in the west, where water is, you have ospreys, the grays, stellar eagles, sea eagles, all in the west, because that's where water is. Now, going around, turning to the east, that's the color of red. You see the wheel is colored red, and you have the red-tailed hawk. So appropriately enough, in the south of the hawk wheel, you have the sharpshins and the coopers. And again, some others may have different ideas. But they're certainly on that wheel. The broadwing and the short wing I see as being in the west, and the harrier is in the north. Now, the harrier is an amazing bird in that it's part owl and part hawk, and a little bit of eagle too. And the harrier is a very spiritual bird, and related to Horus, by the way. It's a marsh hawk, but the harrier I see is in the north. Harriers mainly fly in the upper latitudes of North America, of the Northern Hemisphere, not just North America, but around the world. Now, turning in the wheel to the south, the direction is white, but it's the blackbird who sits there. The raven is in the north of this wheel. The American crow is in the east, very common bird. The Mexican crow is in the south because it mainly flies in very southern latitudes. The Fisher crow obviously lives on water, and we put him in the west. So these are these powerful blackbirds, and there are of course, other kinds of blackbirds, but these are the ones we wanted to point out for now. Now, going to the west, the color is yellow there, but in the west is the owl. West is the doorway to the world of the dead, and at sunset, the sun dies in the west, and then you see the Milky Way going to the southwest. So it definitely has an otherworldly association with the west. So the owls are in the west, and the Arctic owl, of course, is in the north. That's pretty obvious. The hoot owl is a red owl, and the screech owl actually is too, but put the hoot in the east. The barred owl is in the south, and I mean, it feels really appropriate, but also, the barred owl has a southern accent, if you didn't know, because it's the barred owl that says, who cooks for you? Like that. Who cooks for you? Like that. Who cooks for you? So that's a little joke there, but the barred owl definitely has that southern sound, and a beloved owl, and then screech in the west. So those are all the birds that kind of make it to that top level of the four wheels inside the bird wheel. And these are strong birds. All of these are strong birds, by the way, and all can be turned to for help in hard times. So this is a painting my sister made. You can contemplate on the majesty of the evil. There's a lot of love in this picture, love for the eagle. So I placed it in. It's not just a photo, it's better than that. And it has the snowy mountains. And the eagle is the chief of the birds. And it's placed in the north of the bird medicine wheel, at the top of the world, as they say, at the north. And my sister, who is gifted with the bird medicine gifts, painted this picture for me to protect my home. And it shows the bald eagle in the north. There he is in the north. The ornament in the upper right is an actual medicine wheel here. That's what they look like. Used to teach the fourness of things, nautical in fourness in the universe, and how it all fits together. And there are almost always bird feathers attached. You see the four. This is how things come together, the four red roads coming together. Eagles do like those northern latitudes. And you also see them in the Hudson Valley in February when it's really cold. And Algonquins, regardless of where they are, celebrate a coldest night holiday in February and anticipate seeing the eagles before and after that day. It's kind of close to Valentine's. I want to share with you this picture. This is Valentine's Day, and this is the great eagle mating ritual. And I didn't take this photo. I wish I did, but it's very hard to get a picture of this. It only happens once in a while. But on February 14th, all around the world, eagles tend to mate so that the babies, when the babies hatch, they've got the right food, the right caterpillars, everything ready for them. You know, it's like you start breakfast early, right? And then you take your time and then it's ready at the right moment. So there's several rituals eagles do in courtship that Native Americans imitate. But this one, I don't think they do. I wouldn't recommend it. These lovebirds, they lock talons at 200 feet in the air and then tumble spinning towards the ground at great speed. They unlock talons inches from death and they fly away. It's a kind of a trust building process, you see. So if they get that right, then relationship's probably going to be good. And if somebody doesn't let go, they both die, and then, well, it wouldn't have worked out anyway, so who cares? So this is the eagle mating ritual, quite dramatic. And so my sister saw this up in Canada, and then right where she believed our ancestors lived. And then she bought the land and built a house. And the same thing with Judy Abbott of the Muncie is that she was painting in a place where her parents, her great 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 parents, grandparents had lived in a Muncie village, and she saw exactly the same thing, the mating ritual. So I'm going to go to this one. This is Valentine's Day, has European and Native American roots because bird lovers all over the world know that eagles mate on that day. It is said that they mate for life. There's some truth to that. When we say somebody has the heart of an eagle, it does reflect the Native American belief that eagles are very strong birds on every level, like physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, as we shall see. And they do have good memories, so that's an indication of their minds. And this picture over here was an illustration I had done to illustrate a book that I had written called the Algonquin Eagle Song. And an eagle song commemorates or honors persons who have either accomplished something special or have died. And so eagle song or honor song is really the same thing. When you honor someone, you sing an honor song, which is also called an eagle song. And there's no greater honor than to be compared to an eagle or to be visited by an eagle. So if an eagle song is drummed outside, you may well be visited by an eagle as they are attracted to drumming. Something about their temporal lobes are attracted to that. And that's an even greater honor. And the picture here is of William Commanda, who saw a lot of eagles and had a lot of honor songs sung for him over the years. This photo was taken by Nessa Lear, and she writes at her property. She says, due east of our house sits a rock dropped by glaciers. We call it Meditation Rock, and all visitors to the area seem to stop and sit and sometimes fish. This morning, I was greeted by an eagle, a true blessing. So then she sent this the morning that I had this experience with the archangel Michael, showing me this is the middle of a ongoing, all this COVID emergencies. I had this kind of experience out of nowhere with Archangel Michael showing me he was watching over the United States through these hard times. And as you recall, the eagle is Michael's symbol, his totem bird, but also a symbol of the United States. So I thought it was interesting enough to mention. And here at the same time, I got this picture in the mail. And here is a bird is taking a drink in this peaceful pond. Single pointed meditation. Algonquin people practice this as a way of calming the mind by focusing on one thing, then diving within for wisdom, starting from a place of wholeness and serenity. We can then drink of the white light of Wa, an Algonquin word meaning white or light or peace, beauty and goodness, flow, all these things at once, but also using different prefixes and suffixes to make it clear. This light is also filled with knowledge. The very light that's in the air of the spiritual world is filled with knowledge, which helps us help creation continue. Birds, especially these four strong birds, are apparently able to open to this knowledge, and they pick up messages like a radio, like they're the radio, and the feathers are antennas. And it's really accurate and it'd be quite good. And just this weekend, certain well-known musician told me that when he first read Bird Medicine, he was sitting there with his the book for the first time, and he was thinking about hawks, and he was reading about hawks, and a hawk came to his window and came in and kind of looked at him like, "You're thinking about me? Let me in." She said, "Wow, this is some book." You know, comes with little visitors. And the eagle feather is an antenna that says, as we say, it seems to be true. The eagle, in particular, that feather acts as a kind of antenna. It's very powerful. These four strong birds pick up messages from Great Spirit and from a person's ancestors and all over, and they find very clever ways to signal those messages back to us. And it's a little bit like the Native American Sign Language, but in fact, it's situational. And these birds are very quick and clever to find ways to get a message to you that fits into the situation you're in that moment, and it's quick. They don't have much time to think. They don't, you know, it's not about thinking. They just bring it on down. They download. And elders say the bird's feathers are antennas that pick up the messages. Each species of bird in the world has its own special field of expertise, which is kind of what bird medicine shows you, that each species, not just these four, but all of them, they all have their own very specific areas of expertise. It's a unique power, and the feather of that bird would carry that power or that medicine and that type of message. Like a ruffed grouse deals with major medical. So eagles show us the big picture and help us complete our journey in life. They remind us who we are as spiritual beings, and they keep us on the red road. So they're not always into little minute details. They're really trying to keep you focused on the big picture, why you're here on earth, what your mission is, what your spark is, as they say in the movie Soul. And they're really good at this. Now, hawks are spiritual guardians like the eagles are. They give us warnings and impart wisdom, also like the eagles. And they bring messages from departed relatives like the eagles. And they are substitutes for the eagles, but their focus is very practical and very immediate. So it's not exactly the same as the big picture. They do help you with your, overall journey in life, but they are very, very much concerned with right now and the details and coaching you through life in the here and now. So they're very, very practical. Now, crows, they're very smart and help us stay mentally alert. As you know, some of them are more smarter than others, like uh, some crows from the South America, extremely smart. They're the storytellers. They have a warning caw that is recognized by all two and four-leggeds, and they impart messages from long ago ancestors. And crows tend to gather in large roosts at certain days that some of them seem to be like old holidays from long ago, where our Algonquin ancestors used to meet on those days. And they meet at places that were old gathering places. That's something I've researched, and that's in bird medicine. But the roosts, where they are and when they are, that's online. You can look up crowroosts.com, and it's very exciting. So owls, now you know about owls. They bring us news of someone's passing and warn us of mortal dangers and much more. These mystical birds are like dream workshop facilitators. They have those big eyes, and they guide you through the unconscious words of the worlds of spirit. And yes, you should not be afraid of death when you're working with owls, but I don't think it matters. I don't think they would take advantage. So this is a real white eagle. And, there are a few, but very rare. I did not take this photo, by the way. When in a city like Manhattan, I get eagle signs from actual painted signs, maybe painted on a truck or a store or a bus, and there are words attached to give me further insight than to what the eagle is trying to tell me. For example, I was sitting in traffic one day in Manhattan, and that seems to happen a lot, thinking about a friend, and I wondered if I could trust that friend. And then I looked up, and on the back panel of the truck in front of me was the words white eagle, and there was a drawing of a white eagle. And so I took that just as equal to any bird sign, because it's a bird sign. And that's just however this thing works. There's a whole nother aspect to it. Of course, it doesn't involve the bird an actual bird's abilities. It involves birds sending their energies to me in Manhattan. So the bird energies are everywhere, by the way, and that's why the bird cards work so well. This photo is one of the rarest of birds, an albino eagle. And in Native American cosmology, the white eagle is a central spiritual deity of white light, very powerful central deity, the white eagle, who overlights all the birds and is a guide to humankind, but specifically to Native Americans. And there is a book called White Eagle, and there is a um, like the White Brotherhood or whatever, um, very European group, but they have a Native American landkeeper as one of their channeled guides called White Eagle, and it seems to be pretty good stuff. But you can't blame Native Americans on that because, well, that was somebody's channeling, somebody's vision of this Native American teacher, White Eagle. So that's good. We can deal with that. Now, this is our Micmac medicine chief, Grandfather Turtle, passed away very recently. Eagles were his messengers all the time. They're always around him. And as I mentioned in Northern for Time, I wrote a lot about him in that book. And just recently, my sister Lynn visited his hospice room. It was on Tuesday and Friday of that week to pay her last respects. And he was on life support that whole week. She went to him both days right after work. So she had to kind of get out of work a little early, drive there fast, and try to see him. Both times she saw eagles very prominently along the road, which is very interesting. The first was a bald eagle, Tuesday. And then on that Friday, she saw a very rare bird, a half-grown golden eagle, not far from the road. So this was a very rare sign and very powerful. And she knew it was unusual and that it might mean that, he might pass away soon. And he passed away the next day, which was just before Valentine's Day, a big eagle day. So eagles followed him to the end. Now, there's also, I got this letter from a man, Andrew Blair, who's a white person, a Caucasian, but and a friend of William Commandus, as was I. And William Commandus died in, I think, 2012. So this man, Andrew, describes a time in life when he was feeling very timid about sharing this wealth of Anishinaabe, or native Algonquin, cultural knowledge that had been passed on to him by elders, even though he is non-native himself. But you might say he was looking for a sign, of permission from the native elders and ancestors that he should share this knowledge that other elders had shared with him. He says, I lived for a long time in Piermont, New York, just south of Nyack, and that area of the Hudson Valley is well known for bald eagles. Our house was on a stream leading to the Hudson at the foot of a cliff below Palisade Park. One day in the middle of a huge winter snowfall, I'm there making coffee in the kitchen, and my girlfriend's two usually cheerful yellow nape parrots start screaming their heads off. Our living room had a large window looking over the creek. And oh, by the way, this was Sparkhill Creek, formerly Tappan Slope. And this had once been the central waterway of a once powerful but now forgotten Tappan Nation and the head of a great confederacy from Staten Island to Bear Mountain. And so the eagle is that symbol of strong leadership, and the Tappan were those people. And I wrote a book about them in honor of them called the Tappan, the Keeper of the River Crossings. So big book, a lot to say. And so that was a very important river. And he didn't know that, but he knew the eagle was right there. There was an old large maple tree off to the side and only a few feet away from the window. And on a limb, only 5 feet away, was the largest and most beautiful bird I had ever seen, he says. Quote, at least 3 times the size of the largest family turkey anyone would ever find in a grocery store, about 3 feet tall, amazingly beautiful. It's called a golden eagle. And again, they're not natural to the area. And again, he looks at me and one-on-one, and I'm standing there like, so you get the message? He said. Then he opened his wings, and I'm telling you, 9 or 10 feet out, he dives off the limb and swoops away up the creek. I believe that golden eagles relate to communication and passing knowledge on. It was an I know you kind of meeting, excuse me. So I agree with that. I think he's right. Communication and passing knowledge on, certainly, and also that leadership. Speaking of the power of the golden eagle, don't ever try to steal food from a golden eagle. they're called strong birds for a reason. And here you see a fox being picked up off the ground and carried away, full grown fox. And notice that he's been trying to eat some of the eagle's food there. So the fox was not hurt. He picked him up by the legs, carried him about 40 feet, and then lifted him back down onto the snow. And no foxes were harmed in the making of this picture. But it just shows you the incredible power they have. And no, they do not steal babies. That's a myth. They could, but they don't. Okay, and here's our own Natural State University seal of approval here, in Zoomum Unum, and use the eagle as that symbol. But also on the other side, you see the eclipse. An eclipse is an esoteric symbol used by the Midewiwin Society amongst the Anishinaabe. And the eagle is here, and you see the man has eagle feathers in his hair. And, you know, on one hand, those eagle feathers help him tune in to the wisdom that's everywhere. On the other hand, I think the eagles are really attracted to those headdresses. And they don't necessarily say, oh no, he got Charlie. I think it's more like, oh, here's a man who understands us. That's my opinion. I never really asked. Eagles are noble birds associated with esoteric knowledge, and few elders would disagree if I said eagles have conversations with God, or would say Great Spirit. It's true that the bird who flies the highest sees the farthest, and of course the golden eagle flies the highest. So it's been said that, if you want to communicate with the Almighty, you can ask an eagle, or you could become more like an eagle, which is part of my message today. Now let's go to the hawks. So here we get to some updated stories about birds and how they interact with humans. Min Lin, my sister, the bird medicine lady, she really understands birds. Lynn was jogging around Greenbelt Lake in Maryland. Generally, it's a very safe place. She saw a hawk sitting on a very low branch, and he was just staring at her, looking very serious. And she got closer, and then she did that. He did not fly away, but kept staring back at her. And she knew telepathically and intuitively that someone had died. She immediately returned to her car and drove home, and she checked her voicemail. And in fact, there was a message on the machine, a new message that day saying that a good friend had just passed away. And so there you have the hawk staring at you. And they can really look at you and make you feel, uh-oh, somebody died. Now there's a story in Bird Medicine on page 63, Red Tails Understanding Mohawk, which kind of relates in a parallel way to this story, but this is a new story. Now this is another Lynn story, another Greenbelt Lake story, and I think it reflects like how bird medicine teachings have always been passed on. It's really a dynamic story, and there's, of course, that bird. She says, I was walking one sunny day with my sister Lynn, who's one of my main bird medicine teachers, and we were walking around Greenbelt Lake, that's in Maryland. I was an eager student and hoping to share what I knew with her. I heard what seemed most certainly like a red-tailed hawk's cry right behind the bushes, and I said, hey Lynn, that's a red-tailed hawk. I would know that sound anywhere. So I was showing off a little bit. She answered angrily, that's no red-tailed hawk. That's a blue jay trying to sound like a hawk. Not a good mimic. Not even a good mimic. I'm surprised he fooled you. He's found some food and he wants to scare smaller birds away so he can have it all to himself. She yelled at the bush, stop it. We know who you are. Immediately, a blue jay, a very embarrassed blue jay, shot out from behind the bush and sped away to evade capture and further criticism. Very sensitive birds, right? Okay, so, that's Greenbelt's not far from Baltimore. So let's go to Baltimore. They have a team called the Ravens. Pretty good team. And of course, Edgar Allan Poe worked on the Raven there in Baltimore at one point. Now, my sister often sees the shadow of a hawk in between her and a person who is up to no good. It's a warning. Sometimes it's an actual shadow and sometimes it's a vision. She was in Baltimore a few years ago with several girlfriends visiting the harbor, and it was late at night. They're walking back uphill to to the town from the harbor. There's a steep hill, as you may know, going back to town. And in fact, she was headed in the direction of Raven Stadium. A drunken man came walking towards them, staring at them and leering at the girls. Just then, a hawk flew in front of a nearby street lamp and made a shadow between her and the man. This was, of course, bizarre because hawks never fly at night, that's for sure. And they rarely flow down low in low altitudes, and especially in urban areas. So this was 3 waves. This was very unusual. And she took it as a warning, and she told the other women not to talk to the stranger, but to walk faster, and they did. And they managed to get away unscathed. So the bird was like their little policeman. And in bird medicine in 58 and 59, there's a story called New York's Finest Bird. And this is, of course, reference to New York's finest policeman. And in that story, there was a family that come home from fireworks on the 4th of July in Brooklyn. And they got to their brownstone, and there was that iron gate with the ironwork, and there was this hawk just sitting on the top, just staring at them. So they couldn't open the gate because they didn't want to, annoy the bird. But he kept staring at them. And the father, who wasn't like this mystic New Age guy, he said, uh-oh, this bird is telling us something. Something bad has happened. And he intuitively knew that, they couldn't find the son or the brother. And the hawk, looking at them, looked at them very mournfully, like something bad happened. And so they went off looking for the brother and called a lot of people, and they actually found him in an alley injured. And so they got him to the hospital in time to save his life. It's an amazing story. So you could say that hawk literally saved the life of their son. And the thing is that, how there's a certain kind of policeman who comes to the door and said, sorry, that's very sad news. Well, it was like that. Now, this is a great story. I love the story. So again, Lynn, always in some kind of adventure, standing on line at the checkout counter at the Whole Foods in Rockville, which is kind of a triangle with Greenbelt Lake, Baltimore, and Rockville. And she saw the shadow of a hawk pass in front of her, but it was in her inner vision because she wasn't even near the window inside the store. So she was puzzled. And she did not really sense danger, but hawks usually stand between her and a person up to no good. This was well away from the windows. And just then, a young man who was an off-duty employee came up and started talking to her and pushed in line behind her and started pushing her forward. And she's thinking, is this the bad guy? He seemed nice, but he was pushing her. He got right in line behind her. Then when he had created distance between them and the next man in line behind her, he said, psst, psst, you have a $20 bill sticking out of your wallet and it's out of your purse. And the guy behind us may have even pulled it out. We know him. And she's looking at him like, I don't understand any of this. And he said, oh, I am an employee here and we keep an eye on that guy all the time and you should be careful. So it turns out the man who slipped behind her wasn't the bad guy, but was acting as the hawk protector, passing between her and the troublemaker, acting as her guardian, as hawks always do. And she tucked her money in. Well, that's a good story, right? So that's how it works. The hawks can do anything, even using humans to channel their thoughts, which are probably channeling ancestors. Now, Tony Moonhawk understands hawks, and they come and help him all the time, and has saved his life. He has lots of stories in bird medicine, and here's one more story which I think is very interesting. Tony Moonhawk says, a huge redtail came up right in his windshield on the Bronx River Parkway, partially blocking his view. And this is near an area that everyone calls the Bermuda Triangle of traffic fatalities. This is the picture to your right. I found lots of pictures of horrible accidents at this spot. He hit the brakes to slow down so as not to hit the bird. The man in the car behind him in the next lane had a heart attack. That struggling motorist slammed on the accelerator and passed Tony, went around him, and then swerved right as the man was struggling to breathe, and then he smashed into the car in front of Tony. Tony did have time to stop. He had already stopped for the bird. He realized that if it weren't for the hawk, he would have been at that very spot and would have been hit by the out-of-control car, and he would have been injured. Years earlier, he had a near fatal accident in a similar spot that sent him to the hospital to have reconstructive surgery. And it was during that recovery he dug more deeply into his native traditions about birds. Now, Wahaba, so come to some of these classes at NSU. She says, I have a long-standing relationship with Brother Redtail that goes back to my life in Kansas when I was commuting back and forth on Highway 10 from Kansas City, Kansas to Lawrence, Kansas for graduate school. And Wahaba is very well educated, by the way. I learned to tell from where and how Redtail sat on the telephone poles and road signs how my day is going to go, even down to traffic and weather. He or she would tell me to watch out or slow down, the coast was clear, or that the decisions I was making or moving to making at school were good or not. Since I tended to meditate on the road as I had no radio, so I paid attention. It was really a deeply internal sense, not something I could point out to anyone, but I still have it today with both redtail and redwing here. That's the red-winged blackbird, and I predict a big year for the red-winged blackbird. I can feel them coming. In fact, I have my own name for a hawk, which is Hakmun. Hakmun or moon is a Japanese honorific. The suffix means master, as in master teacher. I just started calling him that. It's like our thing. So that's the hawk. The stories about Moonhawk are in page 67 and 8 in the book. Now, white hawks, they're like honor guard cops. So as I was at a memorial gathering shortly after the passing of a neighbor, and of course this was legendary activist and musician Pete Seeger, who loved Native American culture more than anyone else that I knew, and he wrote liner notes to 3 of my books, so I know he's very interested. Someone at the memorial gathering spoke up angrily about Pete and was very disrespectful. So I was upset by what they said. Of course, I kept it to myself, but then I went out walking in the snow with an old friend. We went to the top of a snow-covered hill, and I saw a pure white hawk on a distant horizon flying in our direction. I pointed and I said, hey, that's Pete. He's coming to show us he's happy in the spirit world. Look at him. And I pointed, and it was like a mile away. The bird flew about a mile in a beeline towards us and then began circling low over our heads for quite a while before departing. My mouth, I think, was open the whole time in awe, but it was Pete, all right. And it was a white albino hawk. So white hawks are albino red-tailed hawks that were born with little or no pigment, and it's not even that uncommon. If you look at the cover of Bird Medicine, you'll see a picture. And if hawks are like cops, these guys are honor guard. 56, 58, and White Hawk Spirit section of the Bird Medicine. Now we have to talk about the crows. I don't have a lot of news stories. The Caledonian crow is probably the smartest, uses all kinds of tools, as you see, and very intelligent and makes the most of their natural intelligence, as you see. Owl energy, of course, that's the direction of the west. That's where the sun goes to die, and it's the direction, like the Median Lodge, people leave in the west, but it's all about passing on to the spirit world. The owl is there on the west. Birds are the gatekeepers of the west, associated with twilight, nighttime. Their eyes are like the moon, right? And they give us glimpses beyond the veil into the spirit world and into the mysteries of life after death. The southwest is the direction of the Milky Way, which is the footprints of departed spirits on their way to the Creator, or Kizul in Micmac. And at times, as you see in this picture, it's literally a red road because there's sometimes a redness to that. And of course, talk about owl warnings. Wahaba tells an owl story. She says, well, her name is White Bear Running, has attended several of these bird workshops. My most recent experience with owl occurred on winter solstice 2019. And this was about the time that COVID was just about to be discovered. I was visiting friends outside of Lawrence, Kansas. I had been asked to do a healing ceremony for them. As we drove up to their rather remote farm and turned a corner, my headlights caught a huge great horned one sitting in a tree in plain view, just staring at us. I was really surprised that no one else in the car noticed. He was literally in plain view. He watched us in a very unnerving way as we passed, and I got a definite message about changes, a death of one close to me, and that a wave of purification was coming. Wow, that's the ultimate expression. That's a Native American expression about some major Earth changes. And these are them, the mega moment. Anyway, I was told, she says, that while the ceremony would be successful, there'd be several present who wouldn't benefit because of their own intentions. And in the last year, has been the year of COVID 2020, that group has undergone profound changes in health. One of my best friends died, and of course, there was the pandemic. So the owl showed her about COVID coming as a form of purification. And she remembered, she paid attention. Now, this picture I took myself out of my back window in Salt Point, and I have this wonderful tree right there in the backyard overlooking a lake. And my friend Shoshana used to come to that tree. It was her favorite tree in the world. She would come all the way from New York City to sit at that tree for hours and just look out. And she was struggling with cancer, and it was very healing for her. It made her feel good being at that tree. Soon after she died, and I mean very soon after her passing, this strange owl came to sit in the bottom branch of that tree, and it sat all day. And there were certain resemblances. It seems to be this bird, though, was not like anyone has seen. People haven't really been able to, for sure, identify this bird. It seems to be a giant second-year screech owl, but I mean double the normal size. No one has identified it with certainty, but Shoshana, of course, was one of a kind. If anyone who knows her can attest to that. But this bird was certainly one of a kind. It's how you say, very, very unusual owl. Unusual coloring, unusual size. Okay, so here's Rolling Thunder. According to Elaine Henwood, a trusted friend of the late elder Rolling Thunder, RT, as he was called, would go into an altered state of consciousness where he would become one with a bird in the sky and see through those eyes as if they were his own. He had the bird medicine, a set of spiritual gifts and abilities, all having to do with birds. This technique was a sacred tool he used and a gift he was born with. He eventually reached a point where the need for borrowing a bird dropped away and became unnecessary, and he could go direct. In other words, he didn't have to go inside the bird. His soul or spirit could travel around and see what was going on. And I mentioned this on page 104 of Bird Medicine. And so here's the picture of an eagle that I found. And it's very, I think, appropriate for us to take time to really look at this bird with a single point of attention and try to relax our minds as much as possible to make the jump to hyperspace, so to speak, to fully relax the mind so the different parts of the mind all converge and come together rather than fight or flight, which you panic, and then the hippocampus and the frontal cortex all go kablooey and can't communicate with each other or with the reptilian brain. So I'm going to do an experiment here. I want you to look at the eagle, and I'm going to try to do some music here and a guided meditation. Okay, relax yourself. Imagine you're in a forest and you're staring at a creek. It's flowing in a lovely manner, in a very graceful manner, and very hypnotic. And around you are many birds, different types of birds everywhere. You have the woodpeckers, you have the tufted titmice, and the nuthatch, and you have the crow and the raven and the robin, all around you, flying here and there. But then something catches your attention. You spin around, and there behind you at the edge of an open field is an eagle. And the eagle is staring at you and looking at you with very open eyes, and wanting you to look back at him or her. And the eagle is saying, become more like me. I can speak to the Creator and I can communicate for you with the Creator and tell you what the Creator has for you in your life. However, look at me deeper, become one with me, and you can become like an eagle. And the more like an eagle you are, the easier it'll be for you to speak to the Creator directly. So look at me and absorb everything I am, my nobility, my humility, my perception, my sharp mind, my strong wings, my freedom, my glory, all the things about me, the eagle. The more you're like me, the more you will be talking to the Creator directly. So keep looking. So you reach in your pouch, you pull out tobacco, of course. You take a step towards the bird and you place the tobacco on the ground in honoring that eagle. Now just keep looking at that bird. Now looking at that water again, just become very, very relaxed. Forget about the restrictions and just become in love with the water, just looking at it. But again, you feel something, some sensation in the back of your neck, and you turn around and you look way up in the tree, and there's a giant eagle sitting there looking at you. And he says, I am not alone. No one is alone. No one is alone in the forest. We all have allies. We all have teams. We have our teams. We have our families. And we all work together to achieve our goals. So look at this eagle, and he's looking at you with a special message. And it says, I would like you to introduce you to my brother, the hawk. And so a hawk flies up and sits right in front of the eagle, slightly lower on the next branch. So the eagle's head seems to be just on top of the owl. It's like a totem pole. And he says, this hawk is here. This hawk is my little brother. And he can help you in all the ways that I can if you need him. And then the crow flies up, and the crow lands right in front of the hawk. And the crow is looking at you from one side to the other. And the crow is there, and the eagle says, this is my brother, the crow. And he is also very smart and tells stories and can warn you of danger. And then the owl comes. This owl's been flying around this tree. But the owl lands in front of the crow. And the owl's got big shining eyes. And the eagle says, this is my brother. This is the owl. He is one of the 4 gatekeepers. Do not fear him. He's very helpful to all the creatures. And next, there's a Canadian goose comes and sits. Says also part of the family. A merganser comes and then sits. And then below you have the seagull. And below that you have the heron sits in the branch, very large bird. the turkey. And then below the turkey, you have the robin, you have the dove, you have the pigeon, you have 3 types of woodpeckers that all come, beautiful birds, the huge pileated woodpecker with its snake-like neck, and then it's laughter, and then you have the red-headed woodpecker and the red-bellied woodpecker as well. And all of these birds are my team, my family, and we're all here to help you. We all have different gifts. And then right in front of you, the nuthatch, crawling along upside down with no neck. And then the wren. But also all around there's larks and hermit thrushes, all twittering. And then a bluebird. And of course the blue jay flying around. All these birds are almost like singing in harmony. And then a hummingbird comes and lands on your finger with its tiny little green feathers, symbolizing dedication to Mother Earth. All the birds are coming to honor you. All the birds working together in harmony, and they're all praying for you and offering to help you any way they can. And the eagle is their leader, but of course, with love, as a elder, a parent, or a guardian to them. So enjoy the beauty of all the birds, all gathered to sing to you, to teach you, and to guide you in your spiritual life. So now you can open your eyes and look at this eagle on the screen, and we'll say, okay, that was a nice trip, and we got to see all our bird friends all working together to help us on our journey. So I'm going to bring you slowly back into conventional reality, such as it is, and so we can be of service to others the way that the birds help us. So here we are back again, and so this goes with the part 2. This is the whole thing together is the workshop of the 4 medicine birds, which are very important to know. So if you only learn 4 birds, those are the ones: the eagle, the hawk, the crow, and the owl. And they have been helping humankind for thousands of years. And the Native Americans have this tremendous ability, even now, to tap in and to read their messages and to understand how they're trying so hard to help us. And most of the time, we just don't have any idea. But now maybe that'll change. So whatever hardships you go through, remember the strong birds are there to help you through those hard times. So that's the workshop for today. And, we'll see you around up in the Multas. See you again.